Children are like seeds. You nurture them and they grow into their full potential. But what happens when the very person meant to water that seed tries to bury it instead? For 12-year-old Malik Johnson, school wasn't just a place of learning, it was a battlefield. Every day he walked into class with his books pressed against his chest and his head slightly bowed, knowing that instead of encouragement, he'd likely face humiliation. And the one person leading that charge? His own teacher, Ms. Carter. She was the type of educator who believed some students were born for greatness and others were wasting everyone's time. And to her, Malik belonged in the second category. It started with small remarks. "Malik, do you even understand the question?" She'd sneer whenever his hand went up. "Don't bother. Let someone who studies answer." The class would chuckle, and Malik would shrink further into his seat. But what Ms. Carter didn't know was that Malik wasn't struggling because he was incapable. He was struggling because the lessons were too easy. He had already been solving advanced algebra and reading college-level texts at home. His mind was racing ahead while his teacher was busy mocking him. Still, he kept his secret hidden. Why? Because his mother had taught him that sometimes the best revenge is patience. One Friday afternoon, everything came to a boiling point. The class was preparing for the school's annual academic challenge, a competition where students answered tough questions in front of the entire school and their parents. The winner would represent the school district in the regional championships. Ms. Carter divided the students into teams. When Malik eagerly raised his hand to join, she rolled her eyes. "Oh, Malik," she said with a chuckle loud enough for everyone to hear. "We need our strongest students for this. Why don't you sit this one out? Maybe you can help carry the books instead." The room erupted in laughter. Malik's cheeks burned, but he didn't respond. He simply lowered his gaze and clenched his fists under the desk. But fate had other plans. The principal walked in just as Ms. Carter was finalizing the teams. "Actually," he said, "the district has added a new rule this year. Each team must have at least one student chosen at random. Fairness and inclusivity, you know." The slip of paper drawn from the jar had one name written on it: Malik Johnson. The classroom went silent. Ms. Carter's smile faltered. "Fine," she muttered, "but don't expect miracles." The night of the competition, the auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, and students filled the seats, buzzing with excitement. Malik's mother sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly, whispering a quiet prayer. The challenge began. The questions were harder than anyone expected. Complex math problems, historical dates, scientific theories, each one tougher than the last. Malik's teammates answered nervously, stumbling through their responses. And every time it was Malik's turn, Ms. Carter smirked as though she was waiting for him to embarrass himself. But then it happened. The moderator announced, "For 10 points, what is the value of pi to the 20th decimal place?" The audience gasped. Even some of the parents looked confused. Ms. Carter leaned back in her chair, shaking her head. "Oh, this should be good," she whispered sarcastically. Malik's heart pounded. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spoke clearly, his voice steady. "Video 415-926-535-89793233846. The moderator's eyes widened. He checked his notes twice. Correct. The auditorium erupted in cheers. Malik's teammates turned to him in shock. His mother's eyes welled with tears. And Ms. Carter? She froze in her chair, her face pale. But Malik wasn't finished. Round after round, the questions came. And time after time, Malik answered them with precision, whether it was solving advanced physics equations, reciting obscure passages from literature, or breaking down chemical formulas. The more he spoke, the more the audience leaned in. This wasn't just intelligence. This was genius. By the final round, Malik's team was trailing by 5 points. The last question would decide everything. "For the championship," the moderator announced, "explain Einstein's theory of relativity in simple terms." The auditorium fell silent. Even the adults in the room looked uneasy. Ms. Carter buried her face in her hands, certain this would end in disaster. But Malik stood tall, his voice calm and confident. "Einstein's theory of relativity says that space and time are linked together. The faster you move, the slower time goes for you compared to someone standing still. Basically, it explains how gravity and speed affect the way we experience time and space." The moderator's jaw dropped. Correct and beautifully explained. The scoreboard flashed. Malik's team had won the championship. The auditorium exploded in applause. Students cheered, parents stood on their feet, and Malik's mother wept openly, pride radiating from her face. Malik looked out into the crowd, his eyes locking with Ms. Carter's. For once, she had no words, only the realization that the boy she had dismissed, mocked, and humiliated was the brightest star in her classroom. As the trophy was handed to Malik, the principal leaned into the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you've witnessed something extraordinary. Malik Johnson isn't just a student, he's a child prodigy. And from this day forward, his talents will be nurtured, not dismissed. The spotlight shone on Malik, but beneath the applause, there was tension. Because just as the celebration began, Malik's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out discreetly. A single message appeared. Impressive, but your gift makes you dangerous. Be careful who you trust. Malik's stomach tightened. Who could have sent that? A jealous student? A rival teacher? Or someone with a far darker agenda? The crowd cheered his name, but Malik's mind was already racing. For the first time in his young life, he realized something chilling. Genius attracts not just praise, but enemies. And his battle was only just beginning. Malik has proven himself as a child prodigy, silencing his teacher and shocking the entire school. But the mysterious message hints at hidden forces that see his brilliance as a threat. His real test isn't winning competitions, it's surviving the dangers that come with standing out. If you're really enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button so you never miss my latest uploads. Now, let's dive back into the story of Malik Johnson, the boy his teacher humiliated only to later discover he was a child prodigy. The night after Malik's stunning victory at the academic challenge, the cheers still echoed in his mind. But so did the message he had received. Impressive, but your gift makes you dangerous. Be careful who you trust. For a 12-year-old, those words felt like a thundercloud looming overhead. Malik lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every sneer, every chuckle, every dismissive look from Ms. Carter. And now, someone else, someone hidden, was watching him. The next morning at school, the atmosphere was different. Students who once mocked him now whispered his name in admiration. Some even asked for his help with homework. But Malik could feel the tension. Respect came with a price. And no one carried that tension more heavily than Ms. Carter. She walked into class that morning with her chin held high, but her eyes betrayed her. Every time she glanced at Malik, it was as if her authority crumbled a little more. The other students noticed too, smirking behind their notebooks. Trying to regain control, Ms. Carter announced a surprise test. "Let's see who's really prepared," she said, her tone sharp. But everyone knew who her target was. When the papers were handed out, Malik skimmed through the questions and felt his chest tighten. These weren't standard middle school problems. They were trick questions, deliberately confusing, designed to trip him up. It was obvious Ms. Carter had crafted this test to humiliate him in front of everyone. But Malik wasn't ordinary. He calmly worked through each problem, his pencil gliding across the page. When he handed in his paper, Ms. Carter smirked. "Finished already? Let's not get too confident, Malik." That afternoon, she graded the tests in front of the class, exaggerating her sighs and head shakes. But when she reached Malik's paper, her face froze. Every single answer was correct. Not just correct. Brilliantly explained, with solutions more advanced than the key provided. The class leaned forward, waiting. Finally, one student blurted out, "What did he get, Ms. Carter?" Her voice cracked, 100%. The class erupted in cheers. Malik's classmates patted him on the back, whispering genius under their breath. Ms. Carter's humiliation was complete. She had tried to bury him under trickery, and instead, she had exposed herself as the one who underestimated him. But that wasn't the end of it. The next week, Malik received an invitation to a regional science fair. His math and science achievements had caught the attention of district officials. The principal proudly handed him the letter, calling him the school's brightest mind. But as Malik prepared for the competition, the warnings grew darker. Another anonymous message appeared in his locker. "Step out of the spotlight, Malik. Genius like yours doesn't last long. At first, Malik tried to ignore it, but then things escalated. His science project, the one he had spent weeks perfecting, was mysteriously sabotaged. Wires ripped out, notes missing. It was clear someone wanted him to fail. The night before the science fair, Malik sat at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. "Maybe they're right, Mom," he whispered. "Maybe I should just quit." His mother knelt beside him, her voice steady and warm. "Baby, listen to me. Your gift isn't a curse, it's a light. And when people can't stand the light, it's usually because it exposes their darkness. Don't you ever let fear silence you." Those words lit a fire in Malik's heart. He rebuilt his project from scratch overnight, fueled by determination. By morning, his eyes burned with exhaustion, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. At the science fair, Malik stood on stage presenting his project to judges, teachers, and parents. His explanation of renewable energy wasn't just clear, it was revolutionary. By the end of his presentation, the judges gave him a standing ovation. Cameras flashed, reporters scribbled notes. Malik had not only won the competition, he had captured the attention of universities and national organizations. But the most powerful moment came afterward. Ms. Carter, who had been assigned as a chaperone for the event, approached him. Her face was pale, her voice trembling. "Malik, She paused, struggling with the words. "I was wrong about you." The entire gymnasium fell silent. Students and parents leaned closer. Malik looked her in the eye, his voice calm but firm. "You weren't just wrong about me, Miss Carter. You were wrong about what students can become when they're given respect instead of ridicule." The audience erupted into applause. Ms. Carter lowered her head, tears welling in her eyes. Justice wasn't just served, it was undeniable. But just as Malik held his trophy high, the crowd chanting his name, his phone buzzed once more. The message read, "Enjoy the spotlight, Malik, but remember, every prodigy has enemies and some of us are closer than you think." Malik's smile faded. He looked around the room, scanning the faces. Was it a jealous student, a bitter teacher, or someone else entirely? The applause roared louder, but Malik's heart raced. He had proven his genius to the world. But now he realized, his real challenge had only just begun. Life lesson. True genius isn't just about knowledge, it's about courage. When others try to silence you with doubt, fear, or even hatred, your strength comes from standing tall and letting your light shine anyway. If you were Malik, would you forgive Ms. Carter for how she treated you? Or would you hold on to the pain she caused? Comment your answer down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more powerful stories like this one.